This is the story of my second least favorite moment of 2018, also known as the story of when we caught our pasture on fire. It was New Year's Day 2018, and we had invited a couple of our friends, Cameron and Colby, to come over, which already had knocked out one of my New Year's resolutions, have more social interactions than the previous year. But anyways, they came over because we were going to go on our annual winter camping trip. Now that name is a little misleading because, for one, winter implies that it gets below 40 degrees, and in Texas that's about a coin flip at best, just to put it lightly. And camping, that's another word that's a little vague. It means different things to different people. Now, I'd be the first to tell you it's not camping if you're 10 feet from your house. But at the same time, I don't know, I like to make sure my house is still in view from the campsite. It just kind of helps keep me grounded. It helps remind me there's a life beyond the outdoors. But anyways, we were going to camp in the back of our pasture like we had done in previous years. So they showed up after lunch sometime in the afternoon, and like a good host, I said while staring blankly at the television, "Hey." We then played Mario Kart for about 2 hours in near silence. I'm not sure if any of you have ever played 48 consecutive races of Mario Kart, or more specifically, force your friends to play every single track plus DLC of Mario Kart 8 in one sitting as a single 22-year-old male. But it's not the sort of behavior that screams successful or fun to be around. Anyways, after we all finished the match with some form of Mario Kart shell shock, we started getting our stuff together to go camping. I went with Cameron to go help him unload his Jeep, and that's when I made a pretty interesting discovery. In the backseat of Cameron's Jeep, there were several boxes of artillery shells. Now, if you don't know what an artillery shell is, it's those fireworks, like the mortar shot goes up in the sky, boom, yeah, everyone wastes like their paycheck on it. It's fine. If you don't know what a firework is, then this video was not going to make a lot of sense. At first, I wasn't sure what to think. Maybe he was trying to get some extra cash, get in on the firework business. But no, he told me that the previous night, New Year's Eve, he drove past a fireworks stand that was having like a clearance sale. They were giving away for like $1 a box. So naturally he got 40. I knew then that this night was going to be a bit different than I had planned. What I didn't know is that he had no intention of waiting until dark to start setting them off, something I quickly realized as the first shell careened over my head at a 45-degree angle into our neighbor's front yard. And, I admired his new take on, fireworks, pyrotechnical entertainment, sure. But I also had to wonder, is he insane? At this point, I had a few options. I could try to run in and take him from him while he had his back turned, a risky move considering he was already lighting shell number 2. I could try to go on the offensive myself, go into my fireworks stash that I still have from like 2007, come out dual-wielding Roman candles like a madman. Or a third option, which is the one I end up going with, cower behind my parents' Satsuma tree and wait for it to all be over. And this approach worked for about 6 seconds. I'm not really sure what the thought process was. Maybe in the spirit of the college football playoffs. I'm not really sure. But for some reason, Cameron told my brother to go run a post route into our pasture to catch his next shot. Maybe he was trying out his Jalen Hurts impression. I'm still not really sure. But that was a thing that happened. Thankfully, no one was hurt. It exploded while it was still pretty high up, at least 15 feet up in the air. So we all just had a good laugh at my brother's expense. And I'm kind of glad we did, because no one would be laughing for the rest of the night. I'm not sure who noticed it first, but apparently some of the residual sparks from the explosion had caught the grass on fire in a couple spots, kind of where my brother was standing. He was still standing there, I guess, frozen in shock that he was alive. I know I was. To be honest, my first thought was, well, cool, that keeps me from having to get a fire started later. I wasn't wrong. It's just that the more I stood there and realized what was happening, campfires with a 20-foot radius usually aren't conducive to general camping activities. Unless you count like dying as an activity. Because like in the 10 seconds it took for us to run from my yard to the part of the pasture that was on fire, our general attitude had shifted from laughing at other people's misfortunes to internal sobbing. This was quickly getting out of hand. And it also didn't help that there were several factors working against us and very much for the fire. Number one, the cows that had been grazing our pasture for years were sold back in the summer, so that meant about 6 months worth of unprocessed cow crap was now about knee-high and dead. We realized that a couple pairs of Nikes were not going to cut it. So we ran back to the shed and got shovels, rakes, hedge clippers. Let's just say if it was over 5 pounds and had a handle, it saw action that day. Number two, the main reason we wanted to camp that night in the first place is because Texas was having like an identity crisis and actually giving us like 20-degree weather the entire night. Which I mean, I'm sure if you live in the north, that probably means nothing to you. It's probably your July. But for us, for me, growing up in what I'll call the armpit of the South, you look to cold fronts as beacons of hope. You cherish and honor them the few times they come around. Unfortunately, this is one of the few times that cold weather has betrayed me. We would have already had a huge area to cover regardless, but that strong north wind was not doing us any favors. You know, and this whole time, I've been calling it a cold front. Could have been one. Could have made it by the government. I don't know. All I know is all the fluids that existed in my body did not after about 30 seconds of being out in that pasture. But before we go any further, I want to explain, kind of illustrate what our firefighting technique was like, so you have a better idea of what it was like in the early minutes. 1. Hit flame with shovel or other blunt object. 2. Successfully extinguish approximately 6 square inches of burning grass. Step 3. Successfully ignite all surrounding grass. Step 4. Panic. You repeat that cycle indefinitely, and congratulations, you're now doing the rusty shovel shuffle. Take from me, that's not a dance you ever want to learn. And it was about at this moment that I guess my mom looked through the back door and noticed her view was a bit more orange than normal. She opens the back door and like screams, "What are y'all doing?" I don't know. How do you answer that? Oh, I don't know, Mom. Clearly nothing that's anti-fire. Not satisfied with just our deaths, she decided to join us to bring the number of likely casualties to 5. So there we were, just swinging away at the fire. Every couple, 30 seconds or so, someone would say, "This isn't working," to which someone else would respond, "I know," and then we just go right back to beating the ground like tribesmen. This went on for several minutes until I remembered water existed. A novel concept. I'm gonna go get some. So I did. I ran to the house to get the hose, and then I realized, oh wait, you moron, this hose is definitely not gonna reach all the way out to the pasture. So guess I'll do it the old-fashioned way. I go back to the shed, I get 2 metal buckets that I'm pretty sure were some of the first ever made, but I was making progress, so bring them to the outside faucet by the fence. I'll turn the handle. Nothing. I just stood there confused for a second. The heck, did I forget how faucets work now? Then it hit me. It was going to be freezing that night. My dad turned off all the outside water before he left for work. Good on him for making sure the pipes did not break from the freeze. They might melt now, but they definitely weren't going to break. I guarantee I just stared at those 2 empty buckets for at least a minute, maybe 2. Partially from being in just disbelief of how unbelievably unlucky we were, but mainly because I didn't want to turn around and see how big the fire had gotten. But of course, eventually I had to turn around, and when I did, I was actually kind of encouraged. Now, don't get me wrong, the fire was still raging intensely. It was still getting worse every second. But the pasture bordering ours did have cows grazing on it. So that meant there was no fuel for the fire to spread. It just kind of fizzled out until in these little like spirally patterns that I actually thought were kind of cool, but wasn't going to say that then. And on the east side, our dad had mowed a path to our trash pile in the back, which meant we had another wall of protection. And because we had a steady north wind, that really meant we only had one side left to cover. But this side also came with the biggest stakes: the woods. I remember saying something to the effect of, "Well, guys, this has been fun. It's been great. But if that fire reaches those woods, I'm laying down in the middle of it." I just had the feeling that if we were having trouble putting out blades of grass in a single field, then thousands of trees scattered across like 3 counties would be a bit out of our league. So we had to think of something quickly. Something that's pretty challenging when you're devoting the majority of your brain power to avoiding the grave. And that's when I came up with a pretty good idea, I thought. If the fire wasn't spreading to one side because of the cows and the other side because of the path, then if we just mowed a path between the woods and the fire, we might actually finally contain it. It was a good plan, heavily inspired by Cameron kind of saying it out loud beforehand and practically kicking my rear halfway to the shed to get the mower, but it was my idea. To be honest, I was kind of nervous about using my dad's brand new zero-turn mower, even if it was a matter of death or prison time. There's something you kind of need to know about my dad. He's not really one to spend money ever. He's of the mindset, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And if it is broke, spend more money and time and effort in repairs over the course of a decade than you could have just used to hire a professional landscaping service, but now have a watering can that's so patched up it now holds water. So the pressure of charging into fiery battle with a lawnmower that, judging from my dad's history of purchases, was about 0.5% into its lifespan, was not lost on me. I was not taking this lightly, but I had a job to do. So after paying my respects to the sad, scattered remains of the old John Deere in the corner, finally laid to rest after 20 years of service, I got to work. Now this isn't as easy as I may be making it sound. Regular mowers were not meant to cut that much grass at that speed. If I went too fast, it barely cut anything at all. Okay, so why not just go slower? I tried. I really did. It's just that there's so much global warming your lungs and eyes can take until they become endangered species. There was just no way I was going to do it. I just kind of accepted facts. Okay, I can't stop this. Then Cameron came over to me, clearly angry that I had stopped mowing. I tried to explain to him that all that it just wasn't going to work. We just had to let this thing go. But he assured me that I just wasn't doing it right. Okay. Now, at some point in the proceedings, my mom must have called the fire department because I was starting to hear sirens. And it was a bittersweet moment. Was I happy that actual firefighters were arriving on the scene? Of course, obviously. Was I mortified that they rode in with their sirens at full blast and drifted into our driveway Rainbow Road style? Oh yeah. It was kind of like when your mom's yelling at you in the department store for being ungrateful, for not wanting the cargo jean shorts that are on sale and they don't look any different than any of the other more expensive brands that look like they've been dragged behind a truck for 14 miles. If you don't like it, you can spend your own hard-earned money. Back in my day, we used to make our clothes out of cardboard. Meanwhile, everyone in the store is, including the babies who don't even understand words yet, are now laughing and or staring at you, except in this case, it was the entire neighborhood. A part of me really wanted to yell at them to just kind of cool it with this whole first responder business. But if you know anything about me, it's that I like to defer my problems to other people who are much more responsible and capable. It's kind of my thing. So I was heading directly for that gate, ready to give them a detailed explanation of exactly how they were going to fix our screw up. But when I got there, I was kind of confused. They were just sitting there. First I thought they were having trouble getting through our gate or something, but no, they were just nonchalantly putting on their gear at just like this excruciatingly slow pace. About this time, Cameron walked up. He had the sort of 1,000-yard stare you can only get from going toe-to-toe with a pasture fire with nothing but a lawnmower and naive optimism. But even he could tell there was a certain lack of urgency in the air. Now I do want to say, I'm not trying to trash these guys. I mean, just the fact they're going around fighting fires on a regular basis means they're already like twice the man I am. And that's a conservative estimate. And these were volunteers too, so they weren't even getting paid, I mean, that's pretty impressive. That being said, what the heck were they doing? I think I said something to Cameron like, do they not know the woods are about to catch on fire? And then he said to me, Andrew, the woods are on fire. It was true. The woods were on fire. I mean, I was done. We tried everything. Shovels, a million teaspoonful buckets of water, Olympic level mowing, the world's most unmotivated fireman. I think someone even attempted a rain dance somewhere in there. I don't know. But in the end, it just wasn't enough. Started going through my options again. There was no way I was running from the police in this state. I thought about maybe digging an underground bunker to kind of hide from the police, but I would need a shovel for that, so that wasn't happening. Or maybe I wouldn't actually go to prison, but there'd probably be a pretty hefty fine from like the fire council, Smokey the Bear, someone. But then I started thinking, this might actually, if this gets big enough, we might actually get a good amount of news coverage out of this. Maybe I would go on some talk shows, the news. I might even get like a book deal. My mind was racing with these sorts of things. It started to look like maybe this wasn't such a bad thing as I had previously thought. But when I look up, everyone is gone. I'm completely alone. Apparently, in the time I had been planning a new TLC series, the firemen had actually put the fire out. I mean, I was shocked. I still am. Turns out the reason they were moving so slowly is because this was pretty much a layup for them. I don't think I saw any of them even break a sweat. I'm pretty sure they were kind of bored, actually. Okay. Oh no, I wasn't mad or anything. Okay, maybe a little jealous. Not enough to join or anything, but you know. Needless to say, after all this died down, our enthusiasm for camping was well into the negatives. I'm sure you could understand. Because once you've been through the most extreme fire drill of your life, the idea of sitting around in lawn chairs eating Walmart brand s'mores seems pretty mundane. That, and of course, there was no way we were starting another fire that night. At least I thought so. Somehow later that night I found myself at the business end of a Dr. Pepper can that someone had threw into a roaring bonfire, but let's not get into that. So the final thing to do before we all just kind of fell over and thought dreadful existential thoughts was to call my father. Something else I didn't really want to get into, but unfortunately that was not up to me because my mom was already dialing his extension. I wasn't really sure what his reaction would be. I couldn't really read him that well over the phone. A lot of one-word responses, a lot of silence. So that was fun. But I think the 3 new padlocks that were on the mower shed the next day kind of told me all I needed to know. So, moral of the story, Mario Kart is the greatest video game franchise of all time.